What's your not safe for work college story? Me and my boyfriend did it out in the open in a jacuzzi at my old apartment complex. A Mormon college group was talking about abstinence and purity about 15 feet away. I have no regrets. Story 2. The first girl I went on a date with in college turned out to be pretty freaky, which to me was a plus. She talked about the tricks she had, and I was excited about the possibility of us sleeping together. That was until we were playing truth or dare with each other, and a story came out about how she let her dog lick peanut butter off her area. I never talked to her again after that, and every time I saw her, I just thought about her and her dog. Story 3. I watched a guy beer bong a fifth of Jack. Right before he did it, he said to his buddies, "When I'm done, let's go to the hospital." He did it, and he and his buddies immediately hopped in a car and took him to get his stomach pumped. At least he was being semi-safe about it. Really, he shouldn't have attempted something like that at all, but if you are going to, then it's definitely a good idea to go to the hospital directly after. Story 4. A couple of girls on my floor were going to a dance one night. I didn't go as I had work early the next morning, but I helped out with their hair, makeup, and a variety of other things before going back to my room to watch a movie. As I was sitting on my bed watching my film, the door opened and a random guy came in and took off his pants. I was a bit shocked and confused, so I didn't manage to say anything while he was undressing. As soon as his pants were on the ground, I managed to speak up. I told him wrong room, and he looked around, pulled up his pants, and left. Story 5. I tried hooking up with an exchange student. We went to a bar and ended up dancing and making out. At some point we went outside to talk, and she asked if I wanted to do her. As I was drunkenly agreeing, she put her hand down her pants and showed it to me. It was absolutely covered in blood. She then wiped it on the wall of the bar and proceeded to call me gay because I turned her down after that. Story 6. I met this girl on Tinder and had her over for a second date at the end of the semester. The rooms were set up for 3 people on one side connected to another room of 3 people on the other side. One of my roommates was already gone for break, and the other let me have the room for the night with the girl. The other guys were still in their room, which was cool. The issue was that this girl was on her period and tried flushing her pad down the toilet in a big wad of paper towels. After she used the toilet, we shut the door and started watching a movie. We hear commotion in the bathroom, but just ignore it until I get texts in the group chat that her pad flooded the toilet. Eventually, a girl down the hall picked it up off the ground with a hanger and threw it out. They even bleached the bathroom floor. I went in there after and apologized. The worst part was having to tell her what happened so she didn't do it again. She felt terrible and was embarrassed. Story 7. Me and my girlfriend at the time were super horny, but my roommate was in the room and asleep, so we went exploring in order to find a spot to do the dirty. We found a spot in a nook in the downstairs bathroom and turned off the lights, put a towel down, and went to town. Halfway through, someone comes in to pee. She's riding me at the time, so we freeze and wait for him to leave. We finished our business and left undetected. Story 8. We had a naked beer slide in the middle of January. There were several inches of snow on the ground, and suddenly there was a nude conga line and people diving onto a beer-soaked water slide. Afterwards, we quickly ran back in the house and turned off the lights to hide when the police showed up, and the residents answered the door pretending there wasn't a gathering of rowdy college drunks. Honestly, this sounds like a lot of fun. Maybe not so much with the freezing cold, but a beer-soaked water slide sounds like a good time. Story 9. This one happened to my best friend, and it makes me laugh every time he tells this story. He was at one of those wild parties with a big 10-gallon jug filled with God knows what. He finds this girl, they flirt, and they end up leaving together. They get back to his place, and the clothes come off, and they start bumping uglies. At some point, the girl who is on top sits up and pulls back her arm and delivers a solid right hook right to his face. He yells, "What the hell?" She sits there and says, "What? I thought you were into that kind of thing." They proceeded to finish, and he asked her to leave. He said he kept an eye on her hands the whole time. Story 10. I was in a fraternity, and we had some strippers and some prostitutes over for one of the guys' birthday. Things were getting a little crazy, and all of the guys were getting drunk, grabbing the girls and making out with them, groping them, licking whipped cream off of them, and all kinds of other stuff. The music was blaring, and one of the girls who was a dancer whipped out a stack of quarters and started pouring them out. The girls were dancing on these high tables, so it was hard to see exactly what she was doing. But she took the stack of quarters and balanced them onto the tip of a beer bottle, and then very slowly and deliberately squatted onto the stack of quarters, bringing them into herself. You can imagine what she did next. She laid down on the table with her legs spread wide and her feet up in the air, shifting her weight with her hands, angling her junk in all kinds of directions, while shooting them into the air and into the crowd 1/4 at a time. The guys went wild and everybody was yelling. Her pimp, a guy in a trench coat who never smiled, put his hand on his hip because I'm pretty sure he had a gun on him. So here's the thing. We're drunk, there's music, and people are having a good time when one by one the guys are catching the quarters and putting them into their mouths. Story 11. I was kind of seeing this girl who lived in my dorm freshman year, but all we did was fool around and she never wanted to go all the way. It was frustrating because she was really cute and I was a horny 18-year-old. One time we went out and got drunk and went back to her place. We liked to fool around in the shower, so we hit the showers drunk as hell. I'm trying my best to go all the way, but it's not happening. So I threw out a Hail Mary and asked her if she would go out with me. Well, my drunk self was surprised when she said yes, and that got her to do me. I wake up the next morning hungover and not remembering much when I hear a "good morning, boyfriend," and it's her laying right next to me. I'm pretty sure I was still drunk and said, "What boyfriend?" She stormed out of there in an instant, and that is the shortest relationship I have ever been in. Story 12. I was a member of a club called High Society, which was pretty much a drug distribution organization, funded unknowingly by the university. Once a year, we would have a boat cruise on the river where we would consume drugs at an alarming rate while singing songs that mocked the police, who would follow us along the riverbank waiting for us to disembark. The trick was to make sure anything illegal was disposed of before they boarded. I'm convinced we were a big reason that a water police division now exists in our city. There was also the anatomy student who stole a penis from the cadaver lab and freaked out a bunch of dudes in a pub toilet by putting it in the urinal. He faced criminal charges but avoided jail time. Story 13. I went to college in Minneapolis and worked at a convenience store across the street from my apartment. One day, these two Japanese girls brought a bunch of ice cream to my counter and we talked for a bit. I found out that they were visiting from Osaka and disliked the girl they were living with because she was boring. So I invited them out to see a local band at First Avenue. We ended up having a great time and went back to my place to party some more. My friend Mike, who was with us, went home eventually, and the girls jumped on me as soon as I locked the door. We hooked up, and the whole time I was in disbelief because for a white guy, having a threesome with two Japanese girls is high up on the bucket list. Also, having a threesome wasn't as intimidating as I had always thought it would be. I had just thrown out all of my furniture, including a couch and bed, because some jerk put a great-looking couch riddled with bed bugs by the dumpster with no sign, and I unknowingly brought it up to my apartment. We had all slept in a pile of blankets and sleeping pads after fooling around. I was worried that in the morning I would have to explain to the girls and they would run away. But they were totally cool and understanding. They hated the girl they were supposed to be staying with so much that they ended up bringing all their luggage down to my place to stay with me in my unfurnished apartment. They stayed the rest of their time in Minneapolis with me and cleaned my apartment, bought me booze, and cooked delicious Japanese stew for me. I offered to drive them to the airport as it was the least I could do. On the way to the highway, one of them made me pull over at a furniture store and bought me a futon bed. That's the best thing that happened to me in college. Story 14. I was in my freshman dorm with a buddy and there was a party going on in another dorm room. We decided to head on over and have a few beers. One of the guys in the room was asking people if they wanted to eat mushrooms with him. I politely declined as he opened a bag and shoved what appeared to be at least an eighth into his mouth. We stayed for about another hour before someone suggested that we move the party into the orchard that was right next to the dorm building so we could smoke. About 20 of us moved from this tiny dorm room to the orchard outside except for the mushroom guy. We asked him several times if he wanted to come, but he said that he was fine and that he didn't want to go. We enjoyed a few smokes outside, and after about 45 minutes, we all went back to the room. As we were walking up the stairs to the second floor, we could smell it before we saw it. We turned the corner and saw Mushroom Guy spread eagle on the ground, completely naked with poop everywhere. It was on the floor and smeared on the wall. It looked like he had tried to make cave paintings on the walls with his own poop. He saw us and stood up. Then he came over to try and hug us, but we told him to stay back because he had crap all over his hands and chest. His friends immediately beckoned him into the dorm room and threw him into the shower. My buddy and I immediately bolted back to our own room. I heard that the RAs found everything the morning after and were so pissed that they went door to door and threatened to get the poop tested for DNA unless someone fessed up. Mushroom Guy eventually did tell the RA and was subsequently kicked out of school. I can only imagine the faces of about 20 people walking up to such a sight. It's hilarious to think about all the mixed emotions being displayed on everyone's faces as Mushroom Guy lay spread eagle on the floor with his own poop covering everything. I don't know how you ever come back from something like that. Any person you ever knew in college would remember you primarily for that reason. Story 15. We had a handcuffed terrorist party at my roommate's girlfriend's house for her birthday. It was basically pairs of people dressed as terrorists sharing fifths between each other while zip-tied together. Finish the drink, and you're free. Many things went wrong that night. I got stabbed in the face right below my eye when my friend tried to cut off the zip tie with a knife. We started a bonfire in the backyard using lawn furniture and lighter fluid. We splattered her roommate's expensive shampoo all over the fridge and used hairspray and a lighter to make a torch. We were playing WrestleMania on the TV at max volume the whole time. Her roommate called her dad, who then came and tried to kick everyone out. He grabbed and pushed my roommate, which led to my friends tackling the dad. As the dad was screaming at my friend, he yelled at the dad, "I do coke with your daughter." My roommate's girlfriend was kicked out of the house,